For the last few weeks, I've been sitting here making jokes about Sheath underwear, trying to be funny, but I want to take a moment to be serious a little bit. Robert Patton is the creator and owner of Sheath underwear. He is a U.S. Army veteran, and he came up with the idea for this underwear while he was out in the Iraqi desert, serving our country, protecting your rights. And as you can imagine, being in a combat scenario like that, running around in boxers is just not ideal, uncomfortable, could even be a life-threatening situation. So he came up with Sheath underwear. I have some right here. Now, the material itself is super soft. I love it, just for that reason alone. But on top of that, he came up with this pouch idea, so you can put your junk in there, and it gives you this incredible support. Perfect for when you're in a combat situation like that. It keeps you dry. It keeps your stuff separated so there isn't any friction. It's also really great if you're a combat sports athlete or a professional wrestler like our guest today. And even if you're not, they're just very, very comfortable, and I highly encourage that you check it out. So go ahead to sheathunderwear.com, use my promo code RRBG, and save 20%. And look, you can even use it as a face mask. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RRBG podcast. I'm here with Jake Snider of formerly Minus the Bear. Is that how I should introduce you?
Sure. That sounds just fine to me. Yeah.
You know, it saddens me to say formerly of Minus the Bear. I was a big fan of the band. It's been a couple years now since the band called it. What have you been up to? I mean, aside from the awesome pandemic quarantine that all of us have been up to.
Yeah. So the band stopped playing shows, and then I just started hanging out with my kids more, basically stay-at-home dad, kind of the same stuff I was doing when we were home from tour, really. And then one day a week I work at a hi-fi shop selling like nice speakers and turntables and stuff like that. So a bit of that, and then pandemic stuff. I mean, it was kind of a decent time to stop playing live music since, didn't have to cancel any tours or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. You kind of lucked out, right? And a lot of people lost a lot of money during this thing.
Yeah, it's awful. Yep.
So tell me about this hi-fi place. I mean, what is it that, is it kind of like that childhood teenager dream, like Empire Records, like you've always wanted to work around music and records, or what was it, what led you to go there?
I'm a big hi-fi nerd anyway. Like these days I'm much more into listening to music than making music. And I moved to Tacoma, Washington from Seattle a few years ago, about 5 years ago, and started going to a hi-fi store in Gig Harbor called Gig Harbor Audio, and started buying some gear there. Really liked the store. Eventually kind of figured out that I maybe spent too much time there not getting paid. My daughter's not wearing she's wearing underwear, but that's about it. And I'm trying to keep her out of
the shot.
Okay. So yeah, I spent too much time there. Not there we go.
Hi,
June. And so I just the owner and I started talking about stuff, and I was like, I should probably work here if I'm going to be here like once a week anyway.
Okay.
So let's get me some money. But yeah, I mean, it's just a nice 4 hours a week. Maybe I just get out of the house and go help them out and set up turntables and that kind of stuff.
What would you say, like, what's the advantage of having some kind of, like, dropping a $2,000 on a really good hi-fi record player versus like the $200 like Audio Technica thing you could buy at Amazon? Like, why would I need to do that? Even though obviously I know the reasons, but like, sell me as a regular person that just listens to MP3s on Spotify. Like, why do I need to drop $2,000 on an amp and all that stuff?
Well, for the turntable thing, I think the most important thing to consider is how small and the needle is and what its job is. It's going, like a record is just a bunch of it's just a linear, it's a groove, you know, right?
Hmm.
And it's very small, and you have a very small needle. But like if you blow that up with a magnifying glass, it's like a rock being dragged through a valley. And all that vibration is the music that we hear. So if you have tighter tolerances with the bearings and the tone arm, if the turntable itself rejects external vibration better than like your, you know, Audio Technica from eBay or whatever lower cost options there might be, you're going to get more of the information that's on that record through the needle, through the cables, and coming out, you know, through the amp coming out of your speakers. It's just about getting as much of the detail, the vibration out of the thing. Yeah.
Well, what would be I mean, before, back in the, you know, in the early days of MP3s and everything, the record was still considered to be the best way, and I'm sure it still is, but like I can imagine that with lossless and the improvement of technology and everything, that getting a high quality version of this music is doable digitally. Like, is there a difference now from like a high grade lossless wave file or a FLAC file to say you know, a really high end record player with the amp and the speakers and just having like the 180-gram vinyl record?
I mean, that's like the big debate in like hi-fi circles, is like what it like is vinyl with all its inherent kind of issues better than digital, which is pretty much perfect. Almost every record these days is recorded digitally anyway. So like the master, that's, if you have like a nice high res master, 2496K, you know, nice, or 196 or whatever, you're gonna, and you're mastering a record off of that, you know, it's kind of a lossy transfer. So you're going to lose some information there. But I mean, sometimes I think about it like a turntable is kind of like a musical instrument. It's like a guitar. So you can choose the pickups of a guitar, what kind of guitar it actually is, you know, humbuckers or single coil pickups or whatever. And a turntable, you know, you choose the type of turntable that you like. You choose the needle, the phono cartridge that you prefer. So you're able to change the sound to your preference in a way, kind of like an instrument.
Hmm.
So you can get you know, every cartridge, every phono cartridge sounds different than, and so you kind of tune your playback response that way. But then again, like you were talking about the lossless files and, you know, Tidal or Kobas or whatever streaming services that have really high quality streaming, it's now that I've gone into that world, I used to do pretty much only vinyl, but now that I've gone into high quality streaming with a good DAC and a good streamer, I'm saving a hell of a lot of money not buying as much vinyl. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really good. And it's hard for me to say one's better than the other.
Yeah.
But vinyl's fun. It's more fun.
Yeah, I mean, just not,
Oh,
there's something about having the actual package in your hand, you know, and having the linear notes and the whole thing.
yeah. I'm
Digital.
sit- I'm sitting here next to like a stack of records. So this is, yeah, my weekends often spent with some records, playing some records. So
Yeah, I mean, to my left, I've got I thought was what I thought was an impressive collection until I talked to some record collectors, and I was like, oh no, I'm just a small ignorant child, is what I am.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got a decent amount, but like it's so hard to, like, I don't understand how some of these people collect so many records, like the storage space that you need, and
Mhm.
the cost of some of these pressings, and you know, they pay dearly for some of this stuff to get like just the right, you know, first issued Japanese pressing or German or whatever particular thing. And people are crazy, man.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I mean, some of I think the most I've spent on a record was about $150. It was around $150 for a first press of the Nine Inch Nails, The Fragile,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
which at the time was just not available. Like it was just I couldn't find it. It was my holy grail. That was like my favorite. It was my favorite record growing up. I'm like, I need to have this. I
Mhm.
finally found a used kind of. It wasn't in perfect condition or anything, but it was the record itself was fine. It was just the outside of the packaging was a little messed up.
Right.
But I was like, this is it. I'm doing it. And then 2 months later, they announced like a reissue, remastering, or whatever, and I'm like, God damn it.
I have the remastered version of it with the nice packaging and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't remember where they pressed it, but a guy from that pressing plant sent me a big box of stuff, and it was like included.
Nice.
Pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine is a big collector, not so much like he's got a decent stereo, but he's not like crazy like I get into it, but he likes decent playback. And he's been trying to get William Basinski's Disintegration loops on vinyl, and they only did maybe a couple thousand records pressing, and I mean it's like $1,000.
Jeez.
So keeps looking at it and waiting for it to, go down or find a cheaper version. But
I just don't think I can, even if I had that kind of disposable income, I just don't think I would ever be able to justify dropping $1,000 on a record. Like, I would just say, well, you know what? I can't have it. It's just one of those things.
I'm with you on that one.
What's the most you've spent on a record?
I don't know, probably about I probably spent about $100 on like what is it? Aphex Twin Drugs.
Well,
Like,
that's a great record.
yeah, that was like a first. It comes in like the big,
Yeah,
huge package, and art's awesome. And
that's
yeah,
worth it. I think that's worth
yeah.
it. Now, are you would you recommend getting some really high-end headphones over getting some like really good monitor speakers? Are you more of a wanting to listen to it in your head than having it open kind of in a room?
I'm totally into listening in a room. Yeah,
Okay.
headphones don't really uh, do it for me.
Okay.
But I use them as a tool, like, with when I'm on vacation and, when I don't have my nice stuff around, I'm going to use them. Or if I'm riding on the stationary bike, throw my
That's
phones in.
true.
Or, working on music, which I rarely do anymore, but yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Are you working on anything solo for yourself? Anything that is inspiring you? Like, I'm just wondering. You know, I myself personally, I used to do music, and it's been a few years, and I keep getting that itch to do something. So, is that completely gone from you, or do you still feel the motivation to want to do something?
It's like a weird little nagging thing in the back of my head, like, do something. The kind of music I listen to now, that I would kind of want to make, I don't know how to make. Like, I listen to a lot of like ambient and electronic, or neoclassical, weird kind of, more electronic stuff. So I don't know how to program or use those devices or synths and all that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I listen to, in like, I'm like, I really wish I could make music like Nils Fram, or like um, Tim Hecker, or like all these. There's um, hundreds of artists that I listen to that aren't just like rock bands, and I don't really know how to get into that kind of production.
Okay.
I could learn, but then again, procrastination. So
I mean, I'm guessing the urge isn't strong enough, and I don't blame you with all this happening in the world that we don't even know when there'll be live music or
Yeah,
there's just a lot of artists I've been talking to. They're just worried about putting out records because there's no point, and especially in the streaming era where it's going to be relevant for like a week, and
yeah,
then people will stop listening to it.
yeah. And um, a lot of the reasons that I didn't want to play music anymore are kind of um, baked in to the, like, if I were going to make a record, that would lead to things like, tour. What about a tour? What about, eventually, what about doing like a radio show, stop in and do like a live performance on a radio show, or going on, well, dealing with like the kind of business aspect of music. And like, I kind of don't want to do any of that. I don't like leaving my family for, you know, half the year, or um, uh, all those little, like I said, the radio stuff or playing festivals, those kind of things like gave me a lot of anxiety, and not having those um, kind of triggers or whatever has been pretty mentally helpful for me. So, but then
Interesting.
again, it is like kind of what I've always done. It's what I've kind of done with my life. And so it's like I said, it's always there, like, to do
Yeah,
something with your life, man. Yeah.
it's weird because I do, I've talked to a lot of folks that get anxiety now for the opposite reason, where it's like I can't do what I want to do. I can't go to the road, I can't put out music, and it's very interesting to hear the opposite effect. Well, I guess maybe you were experiencing some kind of, oversaturation or burnout of some kind of just being on the road all the time that especially when you get a young family, like if you have a kid, like it's a
Yeah.
drag to not be there.
Yeah. It got difficult. So, um, but of course I miss all of it, being on the road. In each town, you have your little family that shows up for each show, and all the bands that you meet and make friends with, and then you see them when you go through town. And it's I mean, that's the hardest part, is just those uh those connections that you make with people all over the world, really. So,
Hmm.
but I don't mind keeping it small and tight. And definitely this year has been small and tight with the family, and not a lot of other stuff going on. So, um, yeah.
Is there anything aside from creating music that you've creatively like? Have you tried painting or drawing or anything like that, or some kind of outlet? I guess creative outlet.
No, not really, not right now. I mean, the biggest, it's, yeah, like, so more consumption of art rather than creation.
Okay.
Um, if I do happen to pick up a guitar, I usually, within a couple minutes, play something that I kind of dig, and I've got like hundreds of little riffs recorded into my phone.
Hmm.
So, like, maybe one day I'll try to go through all that stuff and write something down, or um, put them together into like an actual form. But um, it's not really like a conscious thing. I mean, through this whole like pandemic, I'll be like, to be creative, I just need to buy a new guitar or something like that. If I get a new guitar, I'll be like inspired, and then I'll be totally writing again and whatnot. But yeah, I can think of 1,000 uh, ways to procrastinate my way out of that.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to be inspired. I found myself hitting that wall a lot. Like it's a weird situation where I have the want to create something,
Hmm.
and then when I start working on it, I hit that what for wall. You know, like what's the point?
Yeah.
And I've been trying to push past it and like even branching out and trying new things. Like the other day, I decided to try art therapy. I've never. I mean, I used to draw when I was in high school.
Mhm.
I wasn't really a physical artist of any kind. And then just decided to try it, and it created more anxiety, which was really weird. I was telling my wife as I'm doing it, I'm like shaking. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm like just I'm nervous. Like
Mhm.
I'm more anxious now as I'm trying. It's supposed to be the other way around. Like I'm supposed to do this to relax."
Yeah, I mean, my inner critic is a pretty harsh dude. So, I mean, it sometimes I think if, especially if you take a good amount of time off and it's like been a couple years, you trying to jump back into you just kind of get real tentative about like, what if it sucks? Like, is it, you know, is it going to be any good at all? And like, another reason to, yes, I mean, so yes, so like self doubt comes and plays a part in it. And I think um that's always like, nobody really, I mean, I don't know that many people that are like, my art is the best, I
Right.
am
Right.
so good. Most people have a lot of self doubt and are a pretty harsh critic of their work. And yeah, it's when you don't exercise it, I mean, it gets really tough to get back on it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, that's my concern when I hear something come like, what you saying that you're kind of not really inspired much to do it, but it's always a shame to hear when I consider a talented person not
Mhm.
working on their craft. And I look back at the career that you've had and the work that you guys did with Minus the Bear, and it's enough for someone to just say, okay, I've done enough, and then maybe do another thing. You've done 6 albums, 4 EPs. You guys
Yeah.
have toured the world. It's plenty. Like a lot of bands quit before then anyway. Um, but obviously, as a fan, I want more. You always want a little more.
Yeah, I mean, that the reason I think that Minus the Bear worked, whereas like it's really hard for me on my own to do something, is because the band comes together and and writes. Like there's something people will come up with, it's not just me relying on me. I mean, Dave will come up with a part and I'll be like, there's the material, like there's where we start, there's the place.
Mm.
And so yeah, I mean, that's a whole different shift, I think, to the idea where I'd be like, oh, I'm responsible for this entire thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, sure, people might want to hear more stuff, but then again, like you said, it's it was 17 years, and um, maybe that is enough.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel complete in terms of the discography? Like, there's no other message that you need to get out, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that especially with the last record, um, I think we tied it up pretty tight, pretty neatly. Um, but yeah, I mean, the band, like we're still in touch. Oh, I guess we did the EP. Yeah, the EP is actually a pretty good end to it. Like the last album and then the EP, I think are a pretty decent. And
Fair enough. Fair enough. EP came out in
yeah,
2018. Yeah.
so that kind of ties things up, I guess. But yeah, I mean, we talk all the time. We still have, the band is not performing, but it's still, a business, and we have to make decisions about releases and what color vinyl this next replay.
Anniversary
Yeah, all these things.
re-releases.
And
So the
like we're
band's not dead. It's just you're done playing live and
yeah, we're not making new content, but like we're working on a live record from shows from the last tour, the final tour. So not sure exactly when that's going to be come out or be done, but it is a thing that will be out at some point. I'm really
That's
psyched about that.
that's good. That's something to look forward to for sure.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, music is, I'm sure that you've talked to a lot of people that get it, but like it's music business is a weird business, man.
Yeah, it's definitely trying, especially when you're an artistic type. Like if you were more of a like a cookie cutter radio pop kind of thing, like you're just doing work. You know, for you
Yeah.
it's just work. But when you're creating something that means something to you, you can't get distracted with all the other minutia like the tour dates and da da da. And then obviously that requires opening up your art to more people if you want to have a team, if you want to have managers and people
Mm.
doing everything for you. I mean, did you guys have a team like that or were you guys handling everything on your own?
We had a team. I mean, Minus the Bear was like the first band I was ever in that had like a booking agent, like a real authentic like booking agent. It was, I mean, I was like, that's awesome. This is awesome. Somebody else gets to call. Um, but yeah, we had we've went through a few managers and ended up with a really fantastic manager, Amber. She's amazing. And, you know, we've got all the normal business partner type folks that I think bands kind of need at a certain level. Agent, you know, decent lawyer. You get a business manager.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it starts to get kind of crazy, and you have the your road crew and everything that goes out, and um, you end up employing people doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So
Did you feel any kind of like at any point was there any pressure to put out records? Like you know how you hear the stories of, you know, hey, you're signed to a 5 record deal and then you put out two or three and you're just kind of like, well, now we're just gonna have to do like what, a greatest hits and
mhm.
a fucking covers album, you know what I mean? Like, did you
Yeah, yeah.
have that kind of pressure from you know your team or your label or anything like that?
No, I mean, we always had really good relationship with our labels for the most part. The only thing even remotely close to that was doing, and it wasn't a throwaway record, but we did Lost Loves, which is like basically B-sides and songs that didn't make other records, and we put that out on Records, which it ended up fulfilling that contract. So we had, you know, we were done and able to go back to Suicide Squeeze Records, who we originally were with, and who Suicide Squeeze is like probably the best record label out there. Just incredibly honest, and they, you know, actually pay their artists on time and don't try to screw you out of stuff.
That's a rarity.
It's a rarity.
Yeah.
So yeah, we lucked out on the label thing. Yeah, David Dickinson and Suicide Squeeze is phenomenal.
Awesome, man. I mean, you know, I've been a fan from the start. You know, one of the questions I've always had in my head was some of the early song titles were a little wild.
Mhm.
Where did those come from? Like, what was the inspiration? Were you coming up with those, or were they just coming at you with these weird names and you guys ran with it?
It was like anyone in proximity to the band could, if we were out at a bar and somebody said some stupid thing, sometimes we could snatch that up for a song title or whatever. So um, yeah, you could have come up with a song title if you'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
All right.
Um, but yeah, it was just almost all of it kind of random people, usually the band, but random people coming up with different stupid things. So
I wouldn't say stupid. They're interesting. I mean, they caught my attention because honestly, you know, I grew up listening to heavier music, more like the metalhead kind of death metal, Pantera, you know, hardcore, whatever. And anything that was a little more melodic kind of I not that I would hate on it. I just would ignore it. I'd be like, okay, that's not for me. That's it's for the girls. And you guys with the name that you had and I guess the technicality that you had, I always thought of you guys as the music that it was the melodic soft music that metalheads can get into, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even especially like having Dave from, his band Botch was a pretty cool, influential, heavy band.
Yeah, they
And
were for
I think
sure.
a lot of the fans of that band came along with him, and appreciated kind of what he was doing with, I mean, it's all, it, if Dave playing in Botch or Dave playing in Minus the Bear, it's still very Dave.
Yeah.
It's he's got his thing, and it's always, I think, going to be interesting and appeal to a lot of different people. Um, but yeah, I mean, the song title thing got kind of old because, and it was like um, difficult to kind of be like,
I'll
can
do it.
let's talk to like it just became, it's like if somebody wants to, if somebody hears the song and it's got a certain like chorus part and they're like, oh, I like that song that's got, it's like, um, you know, some, people will reference like a chorus line and be like, I like that song. And then you're like, well, the song's actually called, Hey, if you want to throw up, get me naked. Then like, how are you going to ask for that on the radio or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah. It could be a problem. It
Could
could
be a
be
problem.
a
Probably not the biggest issue, but I mean,
No, no.
it was those are fun to mess around and come up with them. A lot of drunk nights that ended up with song titles.
I always found it fascinating that you like to go back to what I was saying about how your music appeals to kind of like people that are into heavier music and whatnot. It's the catchiness of some of the melodies that you would have on your vocals. Like there was some real strong like hooks and things that you could sing along in your head or get stuck in your head as you go along with the day. And I always found it funny when metalheads and headbangers would make fun of that or like talk shit like that's pop music sucks and this that and the other. I'm like, you don't understand how difficult it is to write something catchy. Like, you need to have, and that's what makes money. Like not that you should be making music for money, but if you want to have your band have a long career, you're gonna have to sell some records. That's just the nature of it.
Yeah, I mean but I mean, heavy music definitely sells, and I think that heavy music has tons of hooks in it too, obviously.
Sure.
Um, and yeah,
It's just not as accessible, I guess, or
it's not
user
necessarily
friendly.
right, right. But like then again, you have like quite a few multi-platinum selling metal bands too,
Sure, sure. But
but
it is fewer than, it's kind of a rarity when you find a rock band or a metal band that hits those levels. Like for the most
right,
part, the best-selling artists end up being something more radio friendly or user friendly, something
yeah,
poppy or um but you guys were always on that line for me, like where it wasn't, you would not cross over into the shitty pop, shitty, repetitive or cookie cutter style, but it was still super melodic and hooky and like catchy and like uh, was that? Did you get any kind of training for that kind of writing? Did you go to school for music? Was it all just influences from your youth that you were kind of pulling from?
it was all, I mean, all pretty much influences. Yeah, I don't have any musical training. I don't know what most of the notes are called or the chords and stuff. I don't know what those are. I can't read it or, write it down. Um, but yeah, I think it yeah, writing melodies is kind of difficult. It's a difficult thing to do without like aping some other melody that you just heard on, even on accident or something
Yeah.
like that, um, or like even doing a melody, you know, aping yourself from something you don't realize you're actually doing the same melody, or having it be like stupid. Like this is, uh, it's like that's the same melody from that, you know,
Like a TV commercial.
yeah, like a TV commercial or something like that. And so like you start working on a song in the studio and you sing it, and then the band starts singing like the lyrics from the TV commercial song, and you're like, fuck, what have I done?
Oh
It's
no.
horrible. But at least the TV commercial, probably that's why it works. Gets stuck in your head or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of like the fun of it is figuring out something that um, is memorable and also has like some level of beauty to it, or like something that um, you can sink your teeth into and kind of take with you and hear it on your own without listening to music. Like you can just, it comes into your head sometimes, and that's good. I mean, that's a big compliment, you know. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, man. Because I'm grateful that I grew up in a weird household with like Latin music, and my mom listening to the Bee Gees all the time, and I can appreciate that kind of music. But I talk to a lot of metalhead dudes, or people that are like prog fans that they're like, oh, all that is crap. You got to listen to Dream Theater, or you got. And I'm like, look, I appreciate what they're doing, what Dream Theater's doing. I get that they're incredibly talented, but a lot of these prog super talented kids from like Berkeley and whatnot, they're not writing stuff that I want to sing along to or get it caught in my head. It's more of like a talent show. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Yeah,
look how fast his fingers move. Like
yeah,
that to me, that's not music. Like, I mean, yeah, it's music, but it's like I said, it's more of a talent show type of thing, and it's so much harder. Like you would think that the more technically sound or the whatever, like that's hard. It's like, yeah, that's physically hard. I feel like
yeah,
it's like running a marathon,
yeah,
but it's incredibly hard mentally to create some catchy, hooks and here and there that, like you said, are not a repetition of something you've done or something that someone else has done or a commercial you saw. Because
yeah,
I it's not it's hard. It's hard to not grab from your memory bank of stuff that you just hear in passing.
yeah, totally. I mean, that's, I mean, a lot of times it'll be like I never really wrote melodies or lyrics until I had the music done, you know.
Yeah.
I would write little notes, oh, this might be a cool lyric, but it would never make its way into a song. It just didn't work. So I mean, there's a hell of a lot of that. You know, you listen to the song and you're like, start kind of vocalizing, and you're like, that word sounds kind of like you say some nonsense,
Like a
and you're like, that
gibberish thing,
actually
yeah.
sounds, and you can start, you know, I would start like assigning words that sound kind of like the vocalization, and kind of, and then, I mean, there's just, and then you just kind of backfill it with the meaning and actually make it into a understandable sentence and stuff, and but like, yeah, I never started with the melody first. I would have to get that out of the song.
Hmm.
I just, that's the way it kind of made sense to me. And like, you know, there's a lot of, like, again, referencing back to Dave's playing, like there's a lot of, um, often a lot of notes in there when the way he plays, but there's also a lot of space to fill in too. And it gave a lot of cool opportunities for interesting melodies, I think. So,
Yeah, I was going to ask you what that what your writing process was specifically, because my wife asked me the other day, and she was like, how did you used to write music?" And I was like, "Oh, I used to listen to the music, and then try and work my way from there." And she thought it was weird. She was like, "You don't start with lyrics?" I'm like, never did it, never done it before. I don't think I ever tried, but I don't think it'll work for me anyway.
yeah.
And
I
like, how do
mean,
you?
the song has a tone, and then it make like the lyrics kind of have to reflect that tone, at least for me. Like, it would be really hard for me to shoehorn stuff together, just
Yeah. Unless you're doing like a concept record where you're like, I'm writing an album about, like what Thrice did when they did an alchemy thing with okay, every song here is going to be about water or whatever. Then okay, I guess maybe you can kind of go off of that
maybe.
that
Yeah.
angle. But it would still, for me, it would still require some kind of melody to feel like I always felt when writing a song that I'm not even actually writing it, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm similar to you, where I'm not trained. I'm not musically trained. I don't know anything either. So basically, I would just treat it like I was channeling something else. Like when I would hear the music, I let myself get into that zone, and then whatever would come out of that. I never really gave myself the credit of creating whatever was created. Do you feel that way too, or are you making like a conscious decision a lot of the time?
No, I mean, like sometimes it's kind of like when I mentioned the vocalizing thing. It's kind of a way to take some responsibility off yourself and be like um, a little less intentional and be like, okay, like when one sec, I'm looking for a charger. Of course, I didn't charge my computer enough. But like when like back in the day, like a lot, like writers and musicians would have like these like a muse or like
Yeah.
so like something, or like they would feel like they're divinely inspired or something like that, and it kind of takes the pressure off of that of a person as an artist. When you're not responsible for your work, you can kind of be more
Free,
expressive and write
expressive.
Odyssey or whatever. So like um I try to not take too much responsibility for it and be like, even if I think something about a song, or if I think something about lyrics I wrote or whatever, once it's out in the world, people are going to make it their own and think about whatever their impressions of it are anyway. So it's not really mine anymore. And that kind of actually helps to get over those kind of like that self-doubt that I'm currently struggling with trying to find something new to do. One moment, I'm going to find this. Oh, here it is.
Nice.
I didn't have to go very far.
Yeah. Were you ever able to identify a muse for yours? Like, was there something specifically that you felt was inspiring you? Because like some people would say, "Oh, my wife," or my family, or some kind of internal struggle. Did you have anything? I mean, I don't know. Like I consider your music kind of sexual and or romantic in nature. So I've always imagined that you're thinking about relationships or your wife or something like that.
More like tone, or like a nostalgia, kind of a nostalgic feeling, or like, yeah, like some of the songs came from tours, Europe, going to Europe, like just the trying to think about an experience and like, how do I get this experience and put it into somebody else's brain? Like,
Mm.
how do I write something where they're going to experience what I experienced? I mean, that's kind of what writing is, but like, so like it could be, I don't think a certain person was the
Main inspiration.
muse for, like it's just every little thing that I could draw from becomes um, that kind of inspiration, I suppose. Like yeah, just trying to, yeah, like if there's a specific night, like a specific night that I keeps coming into my head and think about, it just becomes kind of it's just, yeah, I mean, I guess my attempt was just to try to paint these images of specific things, whether or not they're real or imagined. But not some cheesy guy writing songs about my old lady.
Oh,
Some of them were. Some of them are about my old lady. So that's okay.
almost. I could tell some of them were. So if you don't mind me getting deep, a little bit deep here, uh, this is my completely on the outside perspective kind of view of it, but just analyzing the time frame that the band stopped producing and also seeing your social media posts. I mean, you're very vocal about your political leanings and things that are going on in the world. I mean, hell, your Twitter is Jake wear a mask Snider. So,
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
yeah. So, would you attribute maybe this lack of inspiration, this kind of like I'm kind of, like you're not interested. It's not that it's a lack of inspiration, but just kind of like you're not that interested in continuing to create music. Would you attribute it to kind of like what's been happening in the world? Like the whole thing with the, whatever side you're leaning on, like there's been a lot of turbulence in
Sure.
in
Yeah.
the world. So would you say that maybe that's what it is? Because I've honestly felt that as throughout the pandemic. Like some days I'll wake up and I'm super inspired, and then other times I just don't feel like it, and I think it has to do with a lot of the shit that we see that's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's always been something that I have been interested in, like even like since being kind of a little skate punk or whatever, like punk rock music kind of got me into politics in I mean, it's kind of how it seems like a lot of people form some of their, long held beliefs. I mean, listening to, Bad Religion or I can't think, but any number of different more political or like
Social distortion,
so yeah,
Black
and
Flag.
Black Flag or hardcore bands, some straight edge stuff that didn't really take the straight edge thing, but some of the politics did, and like being going, and even minus the bear when we started, which was 2001. So we were going into like the Bush years, and
Right after 9/11.
yeah, so like literally one of our first shows was like the 14th of September 2001.
Jeez.
So like it's kind of all under that like oppressive feeling of that time. I think one of the reasons, just about just go back to songwriting for a second, that we wanted something lighthearted and something that could be fun, considering all the kind of horrible stuff that was going on. But yeah, so I've always been political. We've always kind of been in a way. We didn't take it usually to the stage, but like, we would play benefits or donate money from the band to like, Planned Parenthood or like even like environmental causes, things like that. But like this time, as things go, I think things might be able to, for me, I might be able to be more creative without having, a Trump presidency. Just it is a lot of weight, or it was a lot of like, it wasn't inspiring. And I mean, I'm not usually inspired by presidents or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
not having the feeling of like,
The world is
know,
going
it's
to
like,
end every day you wake up and you check
yeah,
the phone, like, what's next?
yeah. Now I don't have to check my phone in the
Yeah.
morning when I get up. Like I can kind of relax, and it's, who knows? I mean, presidents are presidents, and it's not like, Biden's gonna save everybody and everything's gonna be perfect or whatever. But like, it's certainly a weight off my shoulders that we don't have to listen to that asshole talk all the time.
You don't
And
think he's coming? Oh wait, did that date pass already? It did.
the
I thought he
fourth,
was. Yeah, yeah. Wasn't he coming
he's gonna,
back to save us from the pedophiles and the?
yeah, he's the secret president right now, dude.
Oh, did
Um,
they change the date like they do in Parks and Rec when they're like, oh, I got the date wrong. Do you have the 20th open? Like
yeah,
at the end of the world?
it's like the doomsday cults. Um, but yeah, so I mean, maybe it is easier to write without that kind of
Stress.
stress going on. But then again, 8 years of Bush, and we wrote a hell of a lot of music through that. And
I feel like it
yeah,
was different though. Like I feel like in the Bush era, like yeah, it was bad, but it was motivational in that sense of where you wanted to write. Like that was one of the things I said right when Trump became president. I was at a Will Haven show the night that he won the election, and
okay.
I remember it was in L.A. and I remember checking. I heard like an audible like oh somewhere, and I look at my phone. I'm like oh no.
Yeah,
And immediately, like I turned to my buddy. I'm like, I'm going home. He's like, why? I'm like, I'm going home, dude. He's like, the show hasn't even started. I'm like, I'm going home. I'm not
yeah,
going to be in the middle of downtown LA right now. Like, this
yeah,
sounds like a bad idea to me. And I went straight home, and it felt bad. Like, and it didn't feel like I was trying to say like in the Bush era, like, it was bad, but it was kind of like what, let's start a punk band or whatever. And I told my buddy, I'm like, maybe we'll get some good music out of this. And we did. We got some good records, but
I had the exact same thought. I was like, well, maybe there's going to be some good protest music or whatever, like some actual um, punk rock bands. Maybe there's going to be some resurgence, and you'll get like, like a band that's like, oh, these guys are like the reincarnation of 7 Seconds or something like that.
yeah.
But I didn't really see it happen. But yeah, I mean, we were we played shows both on the election night of both Bush presidencies and then Obama, and like that was maybe both Obamas too. Were we a band that long? I don't know. Second Bush, I think.
Second Bush.
Anyway, second one. Second 4 years of the last Bush, because there's a lot of Bush. Anyway, the and being on, we were in the van listening to the results come in with Kerry and Bush, and we were like, it's looking good, it's looking good. We went and played the show and came off, and they're like, oh, Bush is president. We were like, ah.
Yeah.
And how quickly things can change with these ridiculous elections and the way we do them. But yeah, I mean, when Obama won, it was like a huge celebration both times. And then, yeah, it's just, it's a different world. Like it's a different vibe. It's a different feeling now. And, I hope that there's some good music that comes out of this too.
Now,
I'm not sure what I mean, maybe.
what is it? So, I used to be a lot more politically involved, and I still consider myself kind of like on the outskirts of like I keep up with what's happening. Just like especially during the Trump era, I was kind of like checking my phone every morning, like, oh, what's next? Like, what
Yeah.
now? What did he say? Um, but it concerns me because I don't like subscribing to any particular party because I like certain things from one side and I like things from another side, so I don't really ever pick a specific team. Like I'm not always Democrat. A lot of my friends call me a communist because I'm Cuban and I'm I like socialism. I'm like okay, right, whatever. I'm wondering like that feeling that you had and that I had, that feeling when Bush became president or when Trump became president. Why is that a bad feeling? Like, aren't these people supposed to represent and like kind of they're not. It's not like good guy versus bad guy. You know what I mean? Like we're supposed to be picking two good guys, like one of two good guys, right? That are supposed to help the country and they're supposed to help everybody, operate in a social kind of, why is it that we have this dread when something like this comes along? Shouldn't it be a good thing? Whoever wins, shouldn't we be just as happy?
I mean, that would be awesome. But
Right?
I mean, I've like, I've voted in every election that I could since I was 18, and I've always voted Democratic and I would never vote for a Republican. And that's just like baseline. I'm pro-choice, and there's no way I can,
Right.
I can't, if I'm going to have women have this right to decide their own health care, I can't vote for a Republican. And so that's kind of always been a very specific baseline. Plus all the other stuff, like helping people. I mean, and I'm like more left now than I used to be, but I mean, like people on the left call me a centrist and people on the right call me a communist. So like everybody's like, I can't help it. I can't please anybody.
Yeah.
But like, I think that when Republicans get into power, it just scares it. I feel fear because the people that I care about might lose something very important, like whether it's the right to marry or whether it's the right to make your own healthcare decisions or like feed your kids or like seek asylum in this country. Like there's just so many different issues that seem like that they wouldn't be so stratifying. Like you should be able to like all agree on some things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes it seems like with Republicans that cruelty is the point.
Yeah, it's weird.
I do find that scary and disconcerting, but I know I know conservatives that don't see it that way, and they're not like mean. Some of the people I know personally aren't like mean people, or evil.
Yeah, they're not all Nazis.
Yeah, but they just see it. They're like worldview is just radically different than mine, and I'm like, but how do you do that and still be like, I care for all people? How do you? And it just my brain twists when I think about it.
Yeah, I never understood why people villainized it. Like it's the United States. Like we're supposed to work together. Why is it always this villain thing? Like why are we always against each other? And
Yeah.
I wonder, like, will we ever get to that point? Like we've seen a lot of things change recently, and due to people speaking up. Like the Black Lives Matters movement was huge, and it's a shame that it was like impactful because it shouldn't have been a problem in the first place. But uh, I'm happy that something's happening, I guess, even though it's late as hell. But we've seen some radical changes happen, and we've seen the voices actually kind of making a difference. Do you think we'll see perhaps a third option that actually matters? Because that's the other thing. I always feel that when election time comes around, nothing matters. It's always going to be red or blue. Like, you think that we will eventually get to a point where a third option is actually a viable thing that would actually happen?
It's possible. Like it's happened in the past where like you had your two main parties. I mean, that's the problem with, or it's the fact of the way the Constitution. This I don't know, sound like an asshole talking about the Constitution as if I know anything. I just play guitar, but like in this presidential elections, it's the first person past the post. So like whoever. It kind of creates a two-party system. Like it's either this guy or this guy, like the two main vote blocks. And sure, you have a bunch of third parties, and the third parties are on the ballot, like you could vote for them. Like,
Yeah, but it's
fine.
not.
But they're not gonna win. And like I come back to my personal, like, okay, well, even if I don't like this particular Democrat, at least it's a vote against a Republican or whatever. But I mean, it's possible, and it's happened in the past where you have the two main parties and then another party becomes the new one of the two main parties. So you will always have a duopoly of some kind. But like, let's say it's never going to be the Green Party, but like some other party comes along, and it's like it's like the Goofy Hat Party comes along, and everybody's like, we love goofy hats. It's great. Let's vote for the Goofy Hat people. Then it'll be the Goofy Hat people versus the Republicans or something like that. And then the Democrats will be some third party going like, what happened? Not enough hats.
Yeah. That's weird, man. It's really weird to me. I mean, I tend to be a little too existential, spiritual kind of, I deep thinker in that sense. Not that I'm intelligent in any way. I just kind of always try to like think a little further away than what I'm seeing presented, and it just doesn't make any sense to me sometimes that's what it comes down to. But I did manage to convince myself that there is really no, like, everything that happens on this planet is duality, or bipolarness, or whatever you want to call it. But everybody is born and everybody dies. There's always a beginning and an end, and a black or white, and then there's stuff in the middle, but there's still that's always going to be there. And I feel like that's something we are not going to really be able to escape unless people start looking inward. You know what I mean? Like that's something that I've done a lot of experimenting with, psychedelics and everything, where I look inward, and I know that unless we can all agree that there's more than just what's presented in front of us, no one's going to really try. It just feels like they're just going to pick a side. Like, yeah, whatever. Blue, I guess, is better than red. Or I don't know. I don't know. And that's why I don't think a third party, not now anyway, not the way things are for now.
No. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that there's kind of a lot of self-defense in American politics, and that's kind of what I mean. Like, these guys are bad and these guys are better, so I'm going to vote for the better people.
The lesser of two
Keep
evils.
These guys from hurting other people, And, the Democratic Party could certainly be better, but it's made of people. It's still people running and voting and getting elected, and people are fallible and awful a lot. So, you're going to get a lot of awful shit out of people, because people are generally like problematic in a lot of ways. But I mean, this country is a lot. It's kind of a centrist country overall. Like, so the middle is, I mean, this kind of, it totally makes sense. Obviously, like, you don't have like most of the country, half the country's right, half the country's left. Most of the country's like somewhere in the middle. And so so the big goals of the far right or the far left are difficult to implement, because there are so many people that are like, I give a shit about that, but I don't really give a shit about that. That seems kind of extreme to me. So like, it's a tough, and then you have a bunch of people that are constantly disappointed because it's like, these people,
right?
Why don't they want a better life?
Right. And that's on both ends. Yeah. Like the people on the right are always like, why don't you want to make more money and blah, 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 and work hard? And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I do want to work hard and make a lot of money, but I also don't want to tell people what to do with their bodies, or, or tell them who to marry, or like,
or if
it doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't mind working hard and doing stuff and earning a living or whatever, but if somebody doesn't, I don't think they should starve to death or whatever,
Right. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, man. Like, no, I grew up in a household where if I have a friend that's hungry, I'm going to feed him.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make him do the dishes to get him a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even own boots with straps on them. What kind of boots are these? Did people?
Combat boots, man. I used to wear them to punk shows. What's up? No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
I did have my own set of Doc Martens myself when I was a
Ah,
kid, when I was a boy.
yeah, man. Well, I mean, I don't know. I would say just try and be better human beings to each other, and hopefully that's what these next couple years bring to us. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I mean, it's already felt better, and I think that a lot of the legislation that's gone through so far has been quite a bit better than what we've been dealing with. And um, it is hard to imagine things getting much worse than Trump. But I mean, Bush and Trump are about as bad as, they're both pretty horrible presidents.
Well,
But
yeah, I was gonna say that that's what I felt when Bush was on his way out. I was like, I can't get worse than that, and then
oh,
woo,
I know.
woof,
Really did a number on ourselves.
woo.
It's a weird,
Um,
yeah, we live in a weird country. It's like one of the most diverse, if not the most diverse countries in the world. Like it should be a bunch of different countries because there's different cultural interests all over the place. And like, I live in Washington. Washington is nothing like Missouri. Except for we have farms. We all have farms. There's farms there, there's farms here. But like, the culture's very different, and like touring really kind of reveals that, like you go to Europe and you're like, I'm in France one day and it's not even that far to go to England. You just go on the boat and go over there, and then we're in the UK. And radically different cultures, obviously different language even. And I mean, I don't know. It's mind-blowing that the US isn't a bunch of different countries and is governed by one federal government. It just ultimately doesn't really make sense.
would you be into the idea of that, of like a split? Like I've been into it for a while, and I know some people are like, that's un-American. It's like, yeah, whatever. I honestly don't feel that certain areas should be commingling. There's just too many people and too many different opinions, and I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, it it's the states do accomplish some of that stuff, and I guess the federal government just is like, don't be too stupid. That state down there, our federal laws kind of prevent that. But like, you do have pretty different state governments around, but then you have, the senators of those states, that, two senators in Wyoming, two senators in California, and they represent such a vastly different population of people, like number wise. And having, the Wyoming senators have equal impact to over everyone as like a bigger population state just kind of seems like poor design. Like this constitution thing isn't all it's cracked up to be. Some good ideas,
Yeah.
some decent ideas, but like some of it is just, yeah, the idea that you can have a very small populations imposing their particular belief system on the greater population is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, it doesn't look, we upgrade everything in our lives. We get new phones, we get new computers, we get, everything gets upgraded throughout the years except for how this place runs. And it doesn't make any sense. Like we should be upgrading the way we look at things. And that's where I think that's where a lot of the like where we get that the QAnoners and
Mhm.
on the other end, people like me, where it's like I want aliens to come down and fix it because it's so like I feel helpless. Like, oh, where is the upgrade? You know what I mean? Where is that upgrade that I'm used to seeing in every part of my life? We upgrade even our health and our well-being. Like we're living longer than we've ever lived. People used to die in their 30s. Now it's 80, 90. Average, I guess. But we should be upgrading the way this place is run. Because everything that we're basing our like, oh, the Constitution. Yeah, boy, What? Bunch of old dudes back then that had no idea that we would have porn in our hand at any time. Like that makes no sense.
Yeah.
You know, we
No, I mean it's I mean the I think we treat the Constitution with a little too much reverence, and I think that's kind of your point in a way. Like it is amendable. Like we can do things to change it. We've done that. Like we've amended the Constitution, um, but not for a long time. And like it seems like there's a lot of stuff that we could put into that thing that would kind of clear up some issues, and be like, I mean, it's just a piece of paper. And like, if you choose to ignore it, then people are going to have to enforce that choice somehow, like by force. And if, the Trump presidency, if he's like, yeah, I'm going to ignore that. And everybody's like, well, what do we do? I mean, I guess we can impeach him. And they're like, well, that doesn't, I mean, okay, let's do that. But it's not going to do anything.
yeah.
It doesn't really, it's the weakest remedy possible. There's no real good remedies. It's just an old fashioned.
He was impeached twice and nothing happened. It just
Yeah, it's a weak remedy. But I wish that there was more, that politicians had a little bit more fortitude to make bigger changes to the document. I mean, I guess if it's too easy to change, then it's just like becomes, a filter. It doesn't really hold things back. But
we should have a Constitution 2.0.
Yeah.
And it should be upgraded every number of years. Like I would say every, I don't know, every couple presidencies. You know what I mean? Like we should kind of take a moment to revise and like, hey, let's look at, let's see where we're at.
Let's talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, let's just talk about it. Like
open conversation.
Elon Musk just invented a thing that lets you play video games with your mind. Maybe we should make some changes to our Constitution, just a little bit, because that's a little crazy to think about. And it's easy to get lost, and it's easy to fall into these conspiracy things like the QAnons and the thing, because you feel desperate, and like you want some answers, and you want something to make sense, but nothing makes sense, and so a lot of weaker-minded people end up believing like Trump is hiding in a bunker and he's gonna save us from the pedophiles. Like what?
It's crazy. I mean, there's like doctors and lawyers that believe that stuff. But yeah, you've got a what was I had a thought one time. It was kind of cool, but I think I lost it.
Oh,
no, the thing is, like, if you've been involved in any kind of group situation where everybody collectively makes a decision, like a band or like running a show space or anything like that, or like if you get 4 people in a room, there's going to be massive differences of opinion on how to proceed with whatever you're trying to accomplish. And we're just talking about that on a scale with 300 some million people trying to figure out what to do by electing these jerk-offs that go, represent their states and their constituents. And like, some guy, like you've got a senator from Washington state, and their constituents are going to be like, hey, I'm calling you. I live in Washington. You're my person. Why don't you do this? Vote on this way. And then you've got West Virginia, and you've got Joe Manchin in there, and he's ostensibly a Democrat, I suppose. And his people are like, yeah, Joe, I'm in West Virginia, and don't do anything stupid. Don't go too far left. So like, I mean, these people all have to follow the direction of their constituents, and everybody's got a different idea about how to do things. And it's all very kind of, people, like people just aren't good at working together to improve things. I don't even know a form of government that's, effective at all, really. I mean, they all come with their pros and cons,
For
but
sure.
you know,
Well, we've been talking for almost an hour, so I want to end it, but I want to end it with a couple of lighthearted things since we kind of
that
started
was,
spiraling into the political
that was dark.
sadness. So, question number one that I got from people, I asked some friends and fans to submit questions.
Mm.
And the first thing I got was, what's your favorite TV show that you've seen during the pandemic?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, The Crown was
Okay.
really pretty good. I mean, we've watched some shows. We got, pretty pretty deep into some shows. You know what? It might actually be my favorite show of the pandemic is a show called Room to Improve, and it's an Irish home remodel show um, with this architect Dermot. What's his last name? His name's Dermot something or other, but he takes these like absolute shitholes and makes them beautiful. And I really dig his architectural style. So that's
Okay.
my favorite thing I've seen.
All
That is
right.
like the most like 40 something dad thing.
Home improvement. I mean, that I guess that's what happens when you're locked up at home for
Oh,
an
yeah.
extended period of time. You start wondering, what can I do to make this place better?
Yeah. I look at it all the time. It's got to improve somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming you're not a just a big baby like myself, and still eating cereal in the mornings, what was your favorite cereal as a kid? And are you still eating cereal in the mornings like I am?
My favorite cereal was Fruity Marshmallow Krispies,
Fruity Marshmallow Crispy.
which was a Rice Krispie variant that had like a frosted crispy Rice Krispie and fruity marshmallows in it.
Ah, okay.
So kind of like Lucky Charm style marshmallows. And it had this amazing song that was kind of like a Caribbean thing. It was like fruity marshmallow crispies, lots of fruity marshmallow shapes. Do 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 do. It was awesome. Look up you can find the commercial on
Did
the
you did you use that melody for Minus the Bear song at one
I might use it for one of my solo songs. Yeah.
point? So do you still eat cereal? No?
No,
What's your breakfast?
coffee.
Just coffee?
Well, I get the biggest, sometimes it'll be, weekends, maybe bacon and eggs, but like
Okay.
now you can buy hard boiled eggs in a bag, like,
Yes.
and I will just have a couple of those. Just like,
Okay.
no, 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 no.
Okay. I've reverted. I used to do the bacon and eggs in the morning or a hard boiled egg and coffee. And then like during the pandemic I've reverted to my childhood and now I'm just straight up golden grams and granola with milk
Nice.
in the mornings. I don't know. I
Golden
just
Grams is a solid choice, dude.
yeah. And they've got there's a they're back to this retro recipe that they don't use high fructose corn syrup or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I'm like,
With
okay.
honey.
Yeah. It's so funny to me that they're like we did this bad thing by adding high fructose corn syrup to everything. So now we're going to sell it to you again, but just
Yeah.
without the poisonous chemical that we've been killing people with for years. Um Somebody asked where did the name Minus the Bear come from, but I feel like you've answered that somewhere. Do you
Yeah.
have
I'm
like a
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia? All right, yeah, Wikipedia, guys. I'm not gonna make you answer that. Um, do you see a reunion coming, Coachella style, like all these bands that break up and get back together?
That's a great question. I was looking for my magic 8 ball, but I don't really know. I mean, at this point, it's, I think everybody's kind of happy doing their thing. Like, um, Corey's been painting, doing some wonderful paintings, and Alex is in the UK with his lovely wife and doing some music production stuff. And Dave is, um, he recorded a solo record. So I'm sure that that is going to be amazing. And from what the stuff I've heard, it is awesome. Um, so anything's possible. I just haven't, I mean, who knows?
Right. Well, maybe with a couple, like, like years away from the Trump administration might inspire you to get back on on
Yeah, yeah.
it. Eh.
We don't
Uh,
have it. Yeah, we haven't planned a reunion.
okay. Do you find yourself doing anything outside of listening to music or working on the hi-fi stuff? And do you find yourself doing anything like video games, comic books? Is there like a thing that you nerd out about outside of music?
I read a lot of comic books. Like these days, it's like on the phone. You know, I
Okay.
get like here. Check it out. That's my dog.
Oh,
Anyway,
nice.
I
You have
I
Comixology, is that what it is?
mainly Marvel stuff, so I just use
Okay.
the Marvel app. And but I read like quite a bit of comics. I mean, I grew up with comic books constantly in my life, and drawing and copying the drawings out of comic books and stuff. And um, so having, as I grew up, I stopped getting into it, but having the convenience of being able to just read one on my phone, um, I've gotten back into it, and it's pretty awesome.
Nice. I haven't been able to get into the phone thing. I have old broken eyes, so I can't like I hate having the small screen,
Uh-huh.
but I definitely want to get into just doing it on the on a bigger screen or on the laptop or something. But I still do I haven't really bought any comics lately, but I used to buy it all the time. I got back into it when they kind of rebranded Batman, the new 52 Batman things, and they started doing this Court of the Owl stuff. And like, okay, I can get into that. It was very psychological, but um, I also am a big Marvel fan, and I'm more into the spacey, Kirby, Jack Kirby stuff.
Oh yeah.
What's your go-to? Like, who's your hero and who's your villain?
Um, I love all the X books, like all of the X-Men stuff. I don't really have a favorite villain wise. Um, God, I don't know. I mean, this is like when people ask you like, what's your favorite record? What's your favorite band? I'm like,
Okay.
what day is it? I have no idea. Like tomorrow, it's going to be something different than today. Um, but I mean, I like. I hate to be so boring and say something like Wolverine, but that guy's pretty cool. Colossus
Wolverine's
is
awesome.
awesome too. So, and Colossus is a little underutilized in my opinion these days. But
I give credit to Deadpool for giving him a little bit of a light in the last couple movies they put out. Like
oh yeah,
they shine a little light on Colossus.
yep,
Uh,
totally.
uh, I love Wolverine too, man. I know it's super cliche to say, but he's awesome. I mean, how can you deny that? But I've always found myself more attracted to the villains in these stories. And maybe this is some kind of childhood psychological trauma, but I'm attracted to the villains that have a love interest for some reason,
Hmm.
like Thanos from the Marvel universe. Like that's my
Yeah.
favorite dude, and it's not because ooh, he's so powerful. It was mostly because of his obsession with this personification of death and how he treats it like a real like a woman, like it's his love. So that was always something that I always found appealing. That's also what I started getting into the Joker and Harley Quinn thing, and that got a little weird and toxic. But I've always had this. There's a depth to a villain that has a love interest. I always thought, like Wilson Fisk. Uh,
Kingpin. That's what I was thinking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I thought they did a great job in Daredevil with Fisk and I forget
yeah,
his name, D'Onofrio.
yeah.
He was great.
That's probably the best. That's probably my favorite Marvel. TV show that they've done.
Yeah.
Is that maybe WandaVision now, but I don't know.
Yeah, WandaVision was good. A lot of people were talking crap about it, but I feel like people just talk crap about everything now. Nobody's
It's
happy
fun.
with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. All right. So Wolverine, X-Men. So you're a mutant fan. Are you excited about them joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe and getting a reboot?
Yeah, I mean, it can't get any worse than what Fox did with them. I guess it was Fox, right? Like those movies were in general pretty horrible.
I liked the first two, kind of. Like, even though Wolverine was very skinny and kind of weird that he was that skinny because he's usually a big, bulky dude.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, The Last Stand was one of the worst things that ever been I've ever wasted time watching. Uh,
The Logan was a good movie.
Logan was good. I even enjoyed some of the regular, like the Wolverine solo movies. I mean, they were over the top and a little cheesy, but it's still Wolverine. You know, how can you go wrong, I guess? But yeah,
I think it's going to improve quite a bit. I mean, it's the material's really fantastic, and it just has always kind of been a disappointment. And seeing what is possible with whatever Disney's done with the other stuff, I think it's going to be, I mean, they have nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be good.
All right. Final question. Who would you cast as Wolverine, since that's your favorite dude? And we're not gonna get Hugh Jackman anymore. So do you know, like, who would you like to see in that role?
Let's see. It would be, Jared Kesso.
Jared Kesso. Who's that? Like, where would he be from? Like, that I can recognize.
He's Wayne from Letterkenny.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. All right.
That would work.
That would work. I actually recently got into Letterkenny. I had heard for years about it, but never sat down. And like you said, during quarantine, I've been eating up every show I can find. And Letterkenny was a fun thing for me. I really impressed with that show.
It's one of my favorite comedies ever. Like, it's so funny. Like the first few seasons, especially, are just incredible.
Yeah, man, really well written, like witty, quick, sharp, and I learn words.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, hey, Jake, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, I've been a fan for a while. I've seen you guys live, and I don't even know how many times. Oh, hey, this is something I could share with you as a goodbye. Um, I've only ever been sexually assaulted, like once in my life, and it was at one of your shows.
That's awful.
It wasn't like it wasn't like a terrifying experience by any means.
I'm so sorry.
But I don't know. It was just one of those things where I was standing there and like I just felt someone grab my junk, and I just look up. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And it was some lady. I'm like, oh, okay. But I didn't like. I just backed away. I'm like, all right, bye. But
Cool.
but I love what you guys did. Thank you for years of that. Planet of Ice is still one of my my top 5 records of all time, I think.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I love that record too. It's my favorite, I think.
Nice. Well, thank you.
One of them. That's hard to. I love all my kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's hard to pick a favorite when they're your own, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun. It's been a good talk, man.
I appreciate you, and hopefully, hopefully you get inspired and we hear some new music from you at some point in a couple years or something like that. That'd be fun. I want to hear those 100 little guitar riffs you have on your phone.
Maybe I'll just record 100 little riffs and be like, "Here's the record."
Hey, no one's done that, right? Just release 100 tracks of like little riffs.
Exactly. All right, thanks, Eddie. Appreciate it, man.
Have a good night, man.
Take care.
Take care.